Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Warmies, coming to you live from the Sports Interaction studio on this Wednesday afternoon as the Calgary Flames get set to try to extend their three-game winning streak going up against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Mike Gould here with you, and thank you for joining us on this early afternoon edition of the Warmies, the earliest I think we've done this show so far this season, although with the way these games are blending together for me, it's hard to tell them apart sometimes, but the Flames have been playing noteworthy hockey of late. They've won 3 straight. They've beaten some good teams, and now they have a very good test against a team that is always in the mix in the Atlantic Division, the Tampa Bay Lightning. And we'll just take it right off the top with one of our first picks from Sports Interaction. Let's take a look, Michael, at the money lines for Flames against Lightning, even after winning 3 straight and moving up out of the league's basement. The Flames are still not quite the favorites in today's game at plus 155. The Lightning at minus 190. Heavy favorites. Also good to see minus 165 on the spread and minus 120 on the under 6. So you can kind of read between the lines and see that the folks at Sports Interaction may be saying this will be a Lightning win with not that many goals for Calgary, but a few for Tampa Bay. Hard to say, though. The last 3 games have been kind of unpredictable in certain respects, and the Flames have won 3 in a row. So they have improved to the point where they are climbing ahead of certain teams. Not all of them, though. They've still got some teams in their sights. The Vancouver Canucks, who they just defeated, are still ahead of them technically. So are the St. Louis Blues and even the Edmonton Oilers, who are all of a sudden near the bottom of the league standings after a couple of really ugly losses. Thanks to everybody for chiming in the chat, taking part in today's show. Of course, the big news in sports pertaining to, the teams that we like to watch and we like to root for, the Blue Jays just made a huge signing just minutes before we went live, getting a huge right-handed arm for their rotation. Dylan Cease signing a 7-year, $210 million contract pending a physical with the Toronto Blue Jays. A huge signing. Jeff Passan all over it over on social media. And go check out Blue Jays Nation for all the latest on this huge free agent signing for the reigning AL champions. Of course, today here on Afterburner, on Warmies, of course. Afterburner's coming up after the show. On Warmies, we're talking about the Flames game that is coming up at the top of the hour, a 5 p.m. Mountain Time start, with it being on the road in Florida. And the Flames, as we expected, are going to stick with mostly what we've seen over this last 3-game winning streak, lines that are working. And we'll have a look at them courtesy of Daily Faceoff. They are good lines. Jonathan Huberdeau, Morgan Frost, and Matt Coronato. That's a trio that has been extremely effective. Igor Sharangovich, Nazem Kadri, and Joel Farabee. That has been a trio that's been very effective. Even Michael Backlund, Blake Coleman, and Connor Zary. Zary coming off his first goal since the season opener in the win over Vancouver back on Sunday. And then Johnny Beecher staying between Ryan Lomberg and Adam Klapka. For the time being, Beecher seems to have the hold on that 4C spot for the Flames, with them sending Sam Morton back down to the AHL's Calgary Wranglers earlier this week. So a forward lineup that we've become a little bit accustomed to. I mentioned it on the pregame show before the Vancouver game. I think it's going to help guys like Sharangovich and Zary to not have as many bodies in the fray, pushing them and sort of breathing down their necks. And wouldn't you know it, they both went out and scored goals in that win over Vancouver, which again pushed the Flames to their 3rd consecutive win. The Flames are playing well. They are winning games that on paper maybe they shouldn't be winning. We've talked a lot about this season how their underlying numbers are maybe, better than they really look, but lately it seems like it's all kind of coming along for them to the point where against teams that are ahead of them in the standings, they're putting together some really convincing performances. So we'll see how that will continue here with the Flames, again, embarking upon 3 consecutive games here against very, very strong teams, Tampa, Carolina, and Florida. We'll see. It's a tough gauntlet. It always has been for them on the road. The Flames 8-13-3 on the season so far. We'll take a look at their defense pairings as well. Not a whole lot changing here with Rasmus Andersson, who is the reigning NHL first star of the week, playing with Kevin Ball on that top pairing. They've enjoyed some very strong play. They have also been a little bit fortunate when it comes to the percentages in terms of expected goals, but shooting percentage, on-ice save percentage, they've been fortunate, make no mistake. But you got to be lucky to be good. And right now they have been very, very good. Yan Kuznetsov, who we'll talk a little bit more about later, on the second pairing with Mackenzie Weegar. That's been pretty consistent throughout the year. And Joel Hanley with Braden Pahal. I should say Kuznetsov and Weegar's been pretty consistent over the last couple of weeks here, not throughout the year, but it might be their most consistent pairing with Weegar from this point forward, because prior to that pairing being put together, Weegar was with a vast array of different options, none of whom were all that good. So I think it's very encouraging to see where Yan Kuznetsov is at to this point in the season. You know, speaking of Yan Kuznetsov, was chatting with Flames Nation managing editor Ryan Pike a little bit last night, and Pike has been in the chat already here today. Good to see you, Pike, talking about how it'll be an even earlier Warmies on Friday. You're right. They do have a very early game that day. But I was chatting with Pike last night just about the status of the Flames prospects through the early stages of this 25-26 season, looking at Calder eligibles only. And I think we had a pretty good grasp on what a top five would look like at this point. Obviously, it's been a small sample, but not a insignificant sample for the Flames and their young guys throughout the start of this season. And just before we went live this afternoon, I just put together a little top 10 list, looking at basically the quarter mark of this season, talking about the best Calder-eligible prospects in the Flames system, because there are certain guys who have graduated out of the prospects conversation. Matt Coronato and Dustin Wolf over the last few years are two of the big ones. But where we're at this point in the year, there are a couple guys who have been up with the Flames who still qualify. And Michael, if you could put up this list, here's what we came up with just before the start of the show, and you can sort of debate the merits of this all you want in the comments. Worth noting, though, 4 of the guys in the top 10 for the Flames this year, as we've put it, are currently hurt. Zane Parekh, Sam Honzek, Henry Muse, and Theo Stocksilius. The remaining guys, they've been up and down. There have been some guys who are playing extremely well. Matt Vagridden in the American Hockey League has been one of the best players in that entire league. Cole Reshney, I mean, the thing with Cole Reshney, 11 points in 12 games at North Dakota, but you don't see necessarily the impact that he makes in all 200 feet of the ice. There are folks who I know who have access to some underlying data in the NCAA at that level who say that Reshney's overall underlying numbers this season are just fantastic, especially when you consider that he's an 18-year-old center in the NCAA. But yeah, then you look at it. Who before the start of the year would have had Yan Kuznetsov in the top 10 at all, let alone at number 7? And that's, at this point, where I have him. I don't see him being ahead of any of the 6 guys who are in front of him so far. But boy, what a find he is turning into. Hard to call him a find considering that he was a second-round pick, but at the same time, it's taken him a little while to get to this point. And I think that 7 spot for Yan Kuznetsov is very well earned at this point. So just some food for thought at the quarter mark of the season. Obviously, we do our Flames prospect rankings at the end of every year. And there's already some folks in the comments who are having, some good discussions about it. Riley Perkins, 744, saying that Potter is better than Sam Honzek. They're both in the same tier for me. I have questions about both of them. I think both of them have a lot of upside. Honzek's been in the NHL level. And the thing with me, for a guy like Cullen Potter, I just don't know what role he fulfills in the NHL at that level just yet. But the upside is extreme with a guy like Cullen Potter. So just worth discussing, I think, in the early stages of the season. And, maybe a little strange to be talking about this before a Flames game, where they're playing against the Tampa Bay Lightning, where they've won 3 in a row. But I think it just merits discussing with how Yan Kuznetsov and Sam Honzek have both established themselves in this young season in the NHL. And again, just sort of reinforces how tough it is that they're going to be without Sam Honzek, most likely for the rest of the season, because he was having such a great year. So that's just maybe something worth considering. Now, as we go on here, let's take a look at what Tampa Bay is running with in today's game, because Tampa Bay has dealt with a ton of injuries through the start of this season. Let's have a look at their forward lines, Michael, because It's been a real grind for the Bolts. Still no Braden Point, obviously, but they have Anthony Cirelli playing between Nikita Kucherov and Brandon Hagel. Nick Paul on the second line with Jake Gensel and Dominic James. Again, if you don't recognize some of these names, don't feel like you're missing something here. The Bolts have been extremely hit hard with injury so far this year. Yanni Gourde on the third line with Pontus Holmberg and Zemgus Girgensons, and Jack Finley on the fourth line, along with Gage Gonsalves and Oliver Bjorkstrand. There's a recognizable name who's had a really, really tough go so far this season. So the Bolts in a bit of a strange spot, but by the same token, they are still in an Atlantic Division playoff spot pretty comfortably, might I add. So it's not all bad over in Tampa Bay. They're still a very, very good team worth taking very seriously. Over on the defense side, we're looking at a Bolts defense that obviously is still trying to navigate having traded away Mikhail Sergachev a couple of years ago and being without Victor Hedman. J.J. Moser and Darren Radish on the top pair. And then it really gets, who are these guys? Charles Edward Dastus and Emil Lilleberg. I mean, again, Lilleberg was a Coyotes draft pick years ago. Dastus was playing in the ECHL, I think, a couple of years ago. And then Declan Carlisle and Steven Santini. Santini was a Devils prospect a long time ago. And I'll be honest with you, I like to consider myself somebody who knows, most every player in the league. I've never heard of Declan Carlisle before just this moment. So here we are with a Bolts lineup that, maybe has one bona fide top four defenseman in J.J. Moser, and that's about it. So it's been a real, real tough go for the Bolts in the Atlantic Division. The good news for them is they are expected to have Andrei Vasilevsky between the pipes tonight. And again, 13-7-2 so far with a +9 goal differential. As of right now, 1 point up on the Detroit Red Wings for number one in the Atlantic Division. So that just goes to show how much of a mess the Eastern Conference is right now. We're going to have a look at a couple of little props here for Sports Interaction. Let's have a look. Michael, if you can just pull this one up. I believe the one that I picked was anytime goal scorer for today's game, which just goes to show, look at this. The top four in terms of odds, all Lightning, because they have been driven by their stars all season long. Just a luxury the Flames don't have. Gensel, Kucherov, Hagel, and Cirelli, followed then by Nazem Kadri. So it is definitely a Bolts-heavy lineup if you're looking at betting on anytime goal scorers. I will say the Flames have been very good at generating offense, not maybe in terms of quantity more so than quality, but still throughout much of the season, I do think the Flames will score some goals tonight. I don't think they're going to get shut out. But still, the Bolts are heavily favored in terms of the money line, and they're heavily favored as far as anytime goal scorers are considered. Lots more to look at over at Sports Interaction. We'll let you head over and do that yourself. For games you like, props you like, every game is your game when you bet with Sports Interaction. You can get in on the action with parlay boosts, live betting, and easy deposits and payouts. Bet now at sportsinteraction.com/FlamesNation. 19 plus. Please play responsibly. One more time, that is sportsinteraction.com/FlamesNation. Well, we don't have the image queued up, but we've spent so much of the last couple weeks talking about Matt Coronato developing into a guy who, looks to me a little bit more like a bona fide player. And, it kind of reminds me of something that Trevor Zegras said at the start of this season with the Philadelphia Flyers, where he was talking about learning to become like an actual hockey player again, instead of more of a highlight reel type player, which he was in Anaheim, more of like a trick pony or something like that. I've never considered Coronato to be a one-trick pony, maybe like Trevor Zegras was, but I've really gained an appreciation for him over the last couple of weeks, just as being a guy who grinds. And I think it was a reputation that he cultivated at first at Harvard, and I think it's always been an underappreciated part of his game. But wow, over the last couple of weeks, Matt Coronato has grinded and grinded and grinded. And I am so impressed with what we have seen, even back the first goal that the Flames scored against the Canucks 3 days ago, where he made that incredible play at the blue line to spot Rasmus Andersson, holding onto the puck, just sort of creating separation. Andersson picks it up, sends it toward the goal, and Morgan Frost tips it in. And that goal does not happen without Matt Coronato just having incredible awareness of that situation, but also not being scared to hold the puck in tight quarters. And that's exactly what he did. It's also, I think, very much worth discussing Rasmus Andersson. And a lot of folks in the chat are talking about Rasmus Andersson. Mike, when are you going to talk about Rasmus Andersson? When are you going to talk about Don Maloney? I think enough has been said about Don Maloney. I think the Flames made a huge error in the way that they have communicated over the last couple of weeks. They have made multiple errors, and I think when it comes down to it, after they extend Craig Conroy, if and when they do, and I would be surprised if they don't, I think they really need to do some rejigging of some of their communications and PR strategies. But, there's only so much bread that can be eaten on the Don Maloney front. When we're talking about Rasmus Andersson, though, I am so fascinated. I don't remember the last time that I saw, I do remember the last time that I saw a player with a situation quite like this that has gone back and forth. And the last time that I remember was Brock Besser with the Canucks, where everything in the year leading up to Brock Besser signing an extension with the Vancouver Canucks was leading to the point where the Canucks are going to trade this guy. We know the Canucks are going to trade this guy. And then it came down to the point where they re-signed him. They got it done. The player had these big swings in his mentality about what he wanted to do, and they ended up coming to an agreement. Now, I don't know. I don't know if Rasmus is going to. There are two ways that I can see the whole thing with Rasmus playing out. Is he playing so well that the Flames are going to try harder to sign him, or is he playing so well that he is going to try and seek more money elsewhere? Are those two things mutually exclusive? I don't know. But as far as Rasmus is going right now, if the Flames do get to the point where they decide to trade him, he is playing just extraordinarily well. And it's funny. Somebody suggested to me the other day that maybe Rasmus and Mackenzie Weegar have sort of done the whole Monstars switch from where they were last year, because Weegar, his underlyings and his on-ice percentages have just gone plummeting, and Rasmus's have gone way up. So it's hard to say. These players, they're human. It goes up and down for them. But so far, it's been one crazy storyline to follow with Rasmus Andersson, and I'm here for it. It's been entertaining to watch, and I bemoaned a couple of weeks ago how boring the Flames were to watch. This is becoming a storyline that I'm really getting behind with the Flames, and to me, I don't know what the Olympic break is going to do to the whole trading cycle around the league this season, because you lead into Christmas. Guys don't typically get traded in early December. Teams typically wait until after Christmas to make these big trades. But with the Olympics sort of creating a wedge in the schedule like that, do things become compressed? Do the Canucks set the template with themselves coming out early and saying, we want to make this move early with some of our veterans? I don't know. But the Calgary Flames have a big decision to make with Rasmus Andersson and with a few of their other guys. The chat is really having good characters tonight. Pinder's in there talking about how Coronato is the king. I love that, Ryan. Lots of good stuff in there. Marvin saying, I think Conroy is getting let go of. It's possible. I don't know. Everything that's come out of the Flames in the last 2 weeks has felt to me kind of like a externalized power struggle. And it is crazy to me that we haven't really heard from Conroy, considering that he's a guy who I think if he had his way would be on the radio twice a week, just sort of talking about what he thinks is going on with the Flames. It's weird that we haven't heard anything from Craig really since the start of the year. So I don't know. It's very, very strange. Talking about situations around the NHL that are very strange, though, we saw and we have seen something coming out of Edmonton over the last 24, 48 hours after they were the only game on last night. They took an absolute shellacking, 8-3 at the hands of the Dallas Stars. And this came out earlier this afternoon from Kevin Weeks over at ESPN. This is very interesting. I'm told two-time NHL All-Star and Penguins goaltender Tristan Jarry is among the goaltenders drawing significant interest as a potential option for the Edmonton Oilers. Keep in mind, he played with in Edmonton with the Oil Kings. So Tristan Jarry, maybe. Would that be an interesting option for the Oilers? Maybe. If you're looking at it from the standpoint of how has this guy played this year, then yes, he has a 5-2 record with a .911 save percentage. Last year, though, he had an .893. The years before that, the Penguins were trying to move him. They couldn't. So I don't know if that's necessarily an upgrade. What I do know is that the Oilers, they look horrible. It's not just their goaltending that is causing them problems. It is their scoring. It is their defense. I sort of posed the question to a couple of my friends yesterday, looking at the healthy forwards the Oilers had in their lineup in yesterday's game against Dallas. If you take out McDavid, if you take on Draisaitl, take out Roslovic and Hyman, beyond those four guys, who is the best healthy forward the Oilers have right now? Like what? Is it Vasily Podkolzin? It's not Andrew Mangiapane. He's been one of the worst players, if you go by any of the metrics, in the entire league this season. We're going to have a roundtable coming out at Daily Faceoff this Friday talking about the Canadian teams around the National Hockey League. And if you remember back in the 2015-16 season, all 7 Canadian teams in the league missed the playoffs. And I'm starting to wonder if we're heading for the same thing this year. There's only one Canadian team in the playoff picture as we are approaching the end of November, and it is the Ottawa Senators, and they're hardly a lock. The Florida Panthers are not in the playoff picture right now in the Eastern Conference. If that changes, a team's going to have to be pushed out. There are teams on the bubble. It is really, really something. So I don't know. But I do think the Oilers are in a world of trouble with what they're going through. Their 5-on-5 numbers, it has been a long time since we have seen their 5-on-5 numbers across the board this bad. And they're at a point where they're competing with the Flames in the standings. That's not where they expected they would be. Quite frankly, it's not where the Flames expected they would be coming into this season. The Flames, coming into this game, they are second last in the National Hockey League, only ahead of the Nashville Predators, who lost their last game. The Predators are 3 points back of the Flames with 2 games in hand. Good question in the chat here. Magic 1989 saying, when will we next be treated to seeing the Blasty jerseys? I believe that is coming up in December. I'll have to look into that. I believe I saw at the Bonfire, the season ticket holder event at the start of the year, that the Flames are going to be wearing their Blasty jerseys, I want to say 6 times this season. I'm just pulling it up on my mobile right now. Yeah, their first game wearing the Blasty jerseys is going to be December the 4th against the Minnesota Wild. They're going to do the same thing that they have done in the past, where they do the whole dark mode thing. They'll do a whole week of wearing the Blasty jerseys. So it'll be the 4th against the Wild, the 6th against Utah, and then the 8th against Buffalo, all 3 games in a row. And then in March, it'll be March 3rd against Dallas, March 5th against Ottawa, and March 7th against Carolina, 3 games in a row. And that's it. Now, something that's worth discussing as far as jerseys are considered as well is that there's been a lot of talk in the start of the season about the Flames bringing back their old 2004 era jerseys. That is happening. It might not be this year. My belief is that it's going to be next year that the Flames bring out what they're going to call sort of their farewell to the Saddle Dome type jerseys, with the black C and the shoulder patches with the Blasty logo, and the sort of diagonal striping at the bottom, sort of similar to what they wore in the 2004 Stanley Cup final run. That, we believe, is coming next year. So it's sort of going to serve as a dual throwback, a 4th jersey, and a goodbye to the Saddle Dome type jersey. So that's going to be one to look for, because the Flames only wore that jersey, if you'll remember, for 3 years. And then they moved to the Reebok ones that had the piping and the flags that nobody liked. And they kept those for the better part of 15 years. So, you know, maybe overdue to bring back the 04s, which they will be doing, we believe, next season. So keep an eye on that as we move forward. Of course, as the Flames go right now, their 3 current jerseys are among the very best in the National Hockey League, and we'll be seeing a lot of their white ones over this upcoming road trip. Like we mentioned, the Flames are playing against the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight. Coming up on Friday, they will be continuing their road swing. And as Pike mentioned earlier on in the show, it'll be an early start, 2:00 p.m. Mountain Time, the Flames visiting the Florida Panthers. And then following that, it'll be a Sunday game for the Calgary Flames as they wrap up this road swing against the Carolina Hurricanes. Pardon me. They will wrap up that portion of the road swing. They'll still have 1 game left on it against Nashville before they come home for the first of those Blasty games. So the next time you see the Flames at the Saddle Dome, they'll be wearing Blasty for 3 straight outings. They'll be going whites for the next 4 and then Blasty for the 3 after that. So something to look forward to for the Calgary Flames. Keep it up in the chat. Riley Perkins, 744, saying, yeah, let's do this, Mike. Talk about Don. I kind of already talked about Don. I think it's a little bit of a power struggle. I think it's coming out in public a little bit more than the Flames would have wanted it to. It's not ideal. It really isn't ideal. It's not a good look for what the Flames are trying to do. It's not it's not a good communication strategy. And I question what the strategy was, if there even was a strategy. But at this point, I don't really think it's worth litigating it much further. They made a mistake. I think the way to get past it is to bring out Craig, either by signing him to a contract or at the very least just doing a media availability. That's pretty much the only way that I can see them getting out of this mess. So I don't know. Derek Knight, 9789, asking who starts in net. I might have forgotten to say it. It's Dustin Wolf tonight. Dustin Wolf will get the start for the Calgary Flames, going up against Andrei Vasilevsky for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So a couple of starting goaltenders for their respective teams going head-to-head. Of course, Dustin Wolf is coming off getting that victory against the Vancouver Canucks 3 nights ago. Wolf on the season is 6-11-2 with an .895 save percentage and 1 shutout through 19 games. He remains one of the league leaders in minutes played among a goaltender this season. MHFS9PK saying they need to get Conroy signed before this snowballs. I don't disagree. I thought you were saying before the snow falls, and I was going to say, I think we kind of missed the boat on that one. Have you seen the roads out there? It's not looking very pretty, but I do think they will get Craig signed. I think they would have to really have some problem internally if they can't get Craig signed. Good to see somebody in the chat mentioning that Ethan Wittenbach just scored. Again, a guy who I really debated putting on that top 10 prospects list with the season that he is having. I elected to keep Theo Stocksilius there in the top 10 spot just because of the start that he had to his U20 season with Djurgården, but the injury is a big thing. Like I said, 4 of the top 10 guys on that list are injured right now, and it's tough when you have that luck, that bad luck snowball the way that the Flames have. So it's tough. But yeah, Wittenbach is a very deserving player as well. The one thing is that Quinnipiac, when you have these top scorers at Quinnipiac, it's not always a linear pathway for them to replicate that level of scoring in the NHL. Quinnipiac plays in a conference that is a little bit lesser. They have a slightly lighter schedule and game load and that sort of thing. So, I absolutely am excited about Ethan Wittenbach. By the same token, though, it's not always as easy to point at a guy who's playing there for the Bobcats and say that's going to translate like it will for a guy at Michigan or a guy at North Dakota. But still, something super impressive that we're seeing from Wittenbach, and it is a real good sign when you're getting that sort of production out of a 5th-round pick immediately after you draft him. We'll do one more question just before we pop off. Mr. Watts, Mike Gould, what's your opinion on Kevin Ball being in the top 10 and plus minus this year and Weegar being the worst in the league? Maybe pair them up just to even that number out. I don't necessarily know if you need to even the number out. I think it's mostly, in a certain sense, with Weegar, bad luck. I think, he's playing below his standard for sure, but I also think it is not necessarily indicative of the quality of player that he is. I think with Ball, though, he's playing great. I mean, I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day, and I've gotten mixed feedback on this, talking to other people about it, but I'm going to put it out to the chat just sort of to get your feelings about it. Kevin Ball, to me, kind of reminds me like, he kind of gives me Noah Hannafin vibes in a certain sense of, they remind me of, if like they have very similar skill sets, just feels like they've been coached since they were kids to be exact opposites as players. But to me, I think they have similar toolkits as players. I think Ball is a better skater than he gets credit for. Obviously, Hannafin's a really, really great skater, but that's something he's worked on every day since he was a kid. Ball has kind of been more of a guy who is trusted to stay and do things in his own zone, but neither guy's overly physical. Neither guy is, neither guy is the most skilled with the puck, but they're both just very capable. And I think Ball is going to emerge over the next 3, 4, 5 seasons as a guy who maybe isn't the most dynamic, isn't the most rugged or whatnot, but can just play a ton of minutes. And with Ball, I think the fact that you got that player, as well as the Cole Reshny pick for Jacob Markstrom, whose save percentage is in the .875 range this season, is just an absolute coup. And easily Craig Conroy's best trade as general manager of the Calgary Flames. Even the Elias Lindholm trade, I think, doesn't hold a candle to what he was able to get out of Jacob Markstrom. And I still can't believe there are people out there who say the Flames didn't get requisite value for a 34-year-old goaltender with 2 years left on his deal. That's a fantastic trade. That trade right there and the Lindholm trade should be looked at in tandem as the model for how Craig Conroy should be allowed to manage this team going forward. If you can make 3 more trades like that for guys like Rasmus and Kadri and maybe Weegar down the line, you're laughing. So that to me is just an extremely positive development. And I really look forward to watching Kevin Ball most games now, because I think he is really blossoming into a top end middle pair defenseman who maybe has the capacity to be more. So that's super, super exciting for the Calgary Flames. Looking forward to tonight's game. 5-2 win against Vancouver a couple of nights ago. Good to see some guys getting off the schneid. Connor Zary, Yegor Sharangovich, I thought both had excellent games, and they were both rewarded with goals of their own. The Flames, they've won 3 in a row. I'm going to say tonight's game gets to overtime, but I'm going to say the winning streak comes to an end. That being said, can't be happier with the way the Flames are acquitting themselves in these games of late. And you know what? It's making this season a little bit easier to stomach. Even if they don't win tonight, you can be sure they're going to put in a good, honest effort, I think, which is something that maybe earlier this season we weren't seeing all the time. So in any event, thank you so much to our friends over at Sports Interaction. One more time, thank you so much. You can head on over to sportsinteraction.com /Flames Nation, and they will hook you up with all the best deals, best offers on those great bets with 100+ markets and all sorts of different props available. They're great folks. We appreciate their support here on the Warmies. One more time, that is sportsinteraction.com /Flames Nation. Our thanks to our producer, Michael, out east. Go celebrate the Dylan Cease signing, buddy. And to everybody in the chat, enjoy tonight's game. The Flames taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning at 5 p.m. local time here in Calgary. Until then, my name is Mike Gould saying you've been watching the Warmies.
Hey, buddies, thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Also, if you could throw in a like and subscribe, it does help us out with what it is we are doing. And check out more at flamesnation.ca.